we lost a friend who was very active in the water community, many organizations in the Antelope Valley, Avek Gomez. So we can just take a bit and we'll just honor him a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Will everybody please rise and repeat with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you much. If we can have a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller. Here. Division 5, Robert Harris.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Drew Mercy.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
General Manager Knutson.
Here.
General Counsel Kim.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Secretary. The next item, momentary public roll call. Those people that may be listening in, and we always glad to hear from you. So if you'd like to identify yourself, we'd sure love to hear it.
White Fence 3, Jack Cephas.
Hey, Jack, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you much. You too.
All of you.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other?
No Palmdale Water District.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5. Public comments, period open to the public. So if there's an item is not on the agenda, now's the time to address the board. So we'd love to hear from you. We'll move to item number 6, adoption of agenda. That would be board order 6A1. Do we have a motion and second?
Mr. President, Director Miller will move on 6A1.
We have a motion by Director Miller.
Mr. President, this is Rob. I'll second that motion.
And we have a second by Director Ferris. If there's no further questions or comments, if we get a roll call, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam.
Yeah.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Moving on, item number 7, consent calendar. We have one item, 7A1, approve the minutes of the special board meeting of October 29th. There's no questions on that. We need a motion.
This is Director Donato. I'll move on board order 7A1.
Okay. We have a motion by Director Donato. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Director Mercy, do we have a second? Okay, like I say, there's nothing further, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam. Gary Van Dam.
Yes.
Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Now we move to item 8. So we've had them.
Okay.
Director Donato.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Finance met 11/21, and the first item of business was 8A1, the presentation and workshop on audit results for the fiscal year June 30th, 24. Brandon Farrell, Eddie Payne, LLP, is going to give us an update overview of what our audit was.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. So with Brandon's running a few minutes late, as you can see, he's not here quite yet. So if I could recommend that we move on to item 8A3 through 8A5, give him time to get here and get settled in, then we'll come back to the audit presentation. Is that okay with you, Director Donato?
Yeah, that's fine. That'll work. Okay, so we'll go to then, let's see here. Let's go to 8A2 then. Consider possible
8A3.
action.
It's gonna be 8A3.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8A3. Consider possible action to accept and file the check registry list for the period of October 31st through November 13th, 2024. And
All
Matt,
right.
you're gonna go over that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll hit the highlights. So good evening, thank you. As Director Donato mentioned, the Finance Committee went through the checklist in detail last week at the Finance Committee. I'll hit the highlights. Begin on page 66 of your board packet. This is the first page of the checklist. Item number 1, payment to Department of Water Resources, just under $1.9 million. And this is our monthly fixed charges for the State Water Project. This is based on what's called the Statement of Charges. And the revenue that pays for this is all collected from the property tax. And then just below that, we have our monthly credit card expenses for the various managers. Director Lane has reviewed my credit card and Holly Hughes. And then I have reviewed all the other department heads' credit card expenses. Nothing special jumped out there. And then on the second page of the checklist, item number 37 is our annual payment to Aqua JPIA. This covers the period of October 1st through 2024 through the end of September 2025. And it's for automobile and general liability insurance. So it's about $170,000 and takes care of all of our liability insurance as well as our auto insurance. And again, that's an annual payment. Item number 42 on the next page is we actually pulled that item. So I'm still looking into this. For some reason, the membership went up by a factor of 2. Typically, it's been about 1,500. So it was 3,000, and I haven't gotten an answer back from them on that. So we're going to pull that item for now from the checklist. And those were kind of the highlights, unless the committee has anything to add.
Yeah, did we call and try to get an answer to that?
I have. I sent an email and left a message. Haven't received anything
That's
yet.
unusual, is it not?
To not get a response, or
Yes.
it was only a couple of days ago, so give them a few days to get back to us.
Okay, thank you.
All
I have
right.
a question. So what do they provide, Urban Water Institute?
So they offer conferences twice a year, typically in Southern California, and it's a lot of the retail agencies and wholesale agencies attend. They do so the membership grants member discounts to the conference each year if we choose to attend. And I know we've had a
Recording in progress.
attend, and I've attended in the past as well. So very similar to like AWWA or Aqua conferences, talking about water issues and legislative updates.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
No, continue.
So that's all. I just hit the highlights. I don't have anything else to bring to the board's attention at this time, unless anything jumps out.
Okay, is there any questions from the directors or comments? Okay, so I believe a board order would be in order to accept the report. Check register. A3.
Mr.
I'll make the
President,
motion.
8-3.
Okay, who do we have the motion from?
I made a motion.
Okay, Director Donato. We in a second? Director
I'll
Miller?
second.
Okay. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary, get on the roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
George Lane.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on.
okay,
A5. Right.
okay. That brings us to, 8A4, consideration and possible action to accept and file the treasurer's report for the month ending October 31st, 2024. And our finance manager, Teresa, will give us an overview on that.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, directors. This is the treasurer's report for October. And the average yield to maturity for the total portfolio for October was 4.703%, which was down 0.041% from September. The average days to maturity for the total portfolio was 208 days, or approximately 7 months. And total cash and investments at October 31st was 140.4 million, which was down 1.2 million from September 30th. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It's been some time since we've had anybody from Wells Fargo. Maybe that's something we can think about after the first of the year.
Okay.
Who was it years ago when it was, gosh dang, that used to come up occasionally, it was Annalise, is that? Yeah, Keith and Frank, do you remember that?
Yeah,
Yes, her name was Annalise.
You know, but maybe at some point,
Okay.
it's time to get a little update.
okay, I'll move on to board order 8A4, that we accept, file the registry.
We have a motion by Director Donato. Do we have a second?
Mr. President, this is Rob. I second the motion.
We have a second by Director Paris. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
okay, and that brings us to 8A5. This consider possible action to approve a purchase order with, Sharcraft Inc. for the purchase of one new booster pump at the Mojave Pump Station, not to exceed $35,008. And, operations manager, Mr. Bozigian, will give us an update.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening. Okay, so this is one of our board-approved asset replacement projects, Mojave Pump Station. Currently 4 pumping units out there. We've rebuilt number 1 and number 2 in past years. This year, we'd like to rebuild number 3. We contacted 3 different pump companies, only got 1 response. And this is a new company that we visited their shop in Bakersfield. They're pretty large. This is about the size pumps that they do. And so we thought, well, let's give them a try. They have a pretty good reputation, and I think they'll do a good job. We budgeted $55,000 for this project, and it came in at $35,008.05. And that's a replacement. We looked at rebuilding it. They could rebuild it for about $10,000 or so less, but the bowls are so worn out that they can't be recoated. So I don't think we're going to get much life out of it if we rebuild it. So we just thought it's better to replace it. It's been in service for 40 years, so we think it's time. So we'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
Yeah, John, Director. Who rebuilt those before for us that didn't give us a quote back?
Yeah, DRC did them both, and they've sold all of they're out of business. And I think Roadrunner, I believe, bought all their equipment, but they did not submit a quote for this. So.
Right, Roadrunner's in Parablossom, Archie?
Yeah, I think they're local, right?
Right. Okay.
And we have
All right.
multiple of these will have to be done eventually or not?
We have one more. We have 4 total pumping units. In the summer, we do run two pumps at the same time. So yeah, next year we'll do number 4.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So this will be a brand new pump then, John?
Correct. They'll just put new bearings in the motor, but the pump will be brand new.
Okay.
You know, John, some of our old ones that come out just for an emergency. Do we keep many of those on hand?
We have not, but we certainly could.
Is it a good idea? I mean, just in case something goes out.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We have room in certain areas where we could keep a spare pump, tag it for where it's at in an emergency. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, that would get us by temporarily.
For sure. Right.
Okay, is there any other questions? Okay, if not, the motions would be in order.
Mr. Director Donato,
Approval.
I'll make a motion.
Grade A5.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion second. Director Mercy and Donato, second. If there's no further questions, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Harris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
John.
so that'll conclude my report until the auditor shows up.
Yeah, and Director Donato, Brandon Farrell with ED and Payne just arrived. So if he's ready, we'll invite him up and go through the presentation on the audit results for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here or having me here. So we have prepared slides. Again, I met with the committee last week regarding this, so now presenting to the full board here. So again, thank you for having us. And again, right off the bat, just thank you for having ED and Payne as your guys' auditor. So again, one of my easier clients, they're cleaner clients to deal with, so it's always appreciated. So if we go to the next slide. So we have finished the audit for the year ended June 30th, 2024. And we have issued our auditor's opinion, and it is a clean opinion. So that is a unmodified opinion. So hats off to the staff here for running a clean ship. You guys have a strong management staff and finance staff that keeps track of your guys' assets and net position very well here. Next slide, please. Part of auditing standards is we're required again to communicate with the board. It's called the governance letter. It's a broad overview of kind of how the audit went. We use this letter to draw attention to any significant items that presented itself in the engagement. We'll talk about some risks that we've identified and disclosures and whatnot. So this should have been a part of your board package, and it's probably about a 3-page letter. So
Yeah.
in this letter, we draw attention to any new accounting pronouncements that we had to implement in the current year. Again, GASB comes out with accounting standards on an annual basis to, again, kind of account for things better as it relates to government entities. This year, we implemented GASB 100. Didn't really materially affect anything regarding the agency. It's around the presentation of prior period adjustments for correction of error and estimates. And the reason we just bring attention to it is that we did have a prior period adjustment, which we'll discuss here in a little bit. But again, that's what this new accounting standard was related to. Any questions as it relates to the new accounting pronouncement? All right. So part of auditing standards requires us to assess risks and assign risks to different areas, right? We can't, nor does anyone want to pay us to audit every transaction. So based off our assessment of internal controls, the general operations of the entity and our understanding of the environment in which it operates in, we assign risks to different areas. And that's kind of where we concentrate our audit procedures. Again, for example, we want to assign the same amount of risk to prepaid expenses that we will to revenue, right? Because again, there's greater risk associated with revenue. So just kind of the background on kind of how we audit. And in doing so, this will surround kind of your main your significant estimates as well. So the way we assign risk to is, the OPEB. Because again, this is a significant estimate based on evaluation made by an actuary. And then also the is an estimate of what the water is worth. So it is a material number that we assign as a risk. So we concentrate some of our procedures around those items. Any questions on these identified risks? All right. Another thing that we do draw attention to in our letter is significant disclosures. For the most part, most of the disclosures are pretty self-explanatory and standard. The ones that we do kind of draw attention to are the ones surrounding OPEB liability. And this is because, again, they are quite extensive. The gap requirement for those disclosures are pretty broad. So again, we draw the attention to that because there's a lot of information in there. The other one we draw attention to is the disclosure related to commitment and contingencies. And this, again, is more of a risky disclosure because, again, we are trying to highlight any potential off-balance sheet liabilities related to any kind of litigation or any kind of commitments that are on the balance sheet in general. Any questions as it relates to those significant disclosures? Okay. That brings us to the prior period adjustment. So the prior, in going through our audit procedures this year and talking with Teresa, we kind of dug a little bit more into the CRA property tax, and the reports that the agency typically gets from the county weren't very informational as far as when those or what period those property taxes were related to. So we reached out to the county because we had a concern there, or Teresa voiced her concern from the get-go. And in looking at those, the amounts received every June are actually for the period starting July 1st of the next fiscal year. So what the agency had typically done was just record them when the cash was in. And there's not really a big misstatement issue there as far as, on a year-to-year basis, those are pretty much the same. So as long as you're doing it on a consistent base, you would have relatively the same amount of revenue, right? However, again, the part wanted to be, completely correct. Teresa and us made the decision to actually make an adjustment to report it in the proper period. So what that did is, so what we do now is the amounts that are received in June are recorded as a deferred inflow, as a liability. Kind of think about it as a deferred revenue, right? And then in the next period, that will actually get recognized as revenue. So with that, what that ended up doing, we ended up having a prior period adjustment to beginning net position, your equity in the entity, of $1.3 million. And all that did is pretty much put most of that amount from the net position up into a liability. The net effect on the current year income statement was, I think, about $25,000. So like I said, very minimal on the income effect, but again, we want to have that proper reporting overall. I know that was a lot, so any questions on the prior period adjustment? Or anything, Teresa, any other context you want to add to that? All right. Again, further down, as far as the management is concerned, very transparent, no disagreements, very easy to work with and fulfilling our audit requirements. And again, I want to just thank the staff here, because I always acknowledge that they have to do their own job while facilitating my job as well. So it's not always easy. So again, thank you for working with us in an efficient manner. Again, like I said, we are required to assess internal controls. However, we're not required to audit them. In our assessment, if we do find any kind of deficiencies, we report those in the internal control report. There is an internal control report, but again, that's just a standard report saying that there are no findings this year. So again, hats off to the staff here for running a clean ship. Any questions on the internal controls? All right, you guys are easy so far. We'll go over some financial information here. This is a very condensed version of the statement of net position. Think of it, your kind of your balance sheet. It presents your assets, your liabilities, and your net position, which ultimately think about it as your equity in the entity. We'll start off current assets. Again, current assets are your assets that are you can't turn over within a year. if need be. Your long-term ones would be anything in addition to any excess of a year, as far as would it be able to turn to cash, if you want to think about it that way. So this year, about $178 million in current assets compared to about $160,000 of the $60 million in the prior year. That's an increase of about $18.5 million. The bulk of that, a good portion of that was related to, I think it's about just under 8 million related to the banked water inventory. And then between cash, investments, and AR, that was an uptick of about $11 million. Again, there's time differences on where you have your cash and where you put it into your investments or where you're receiving receivables. So I kind of talk about those all in one deal. So those, again, had an increase of about $11 million. Any questions on current assets? All right. So restricted assets, again, very immaterial to these financial statements, but again, about a little over $300,000 compared to $267,000 in the prior year. Any questions on the restricted assets?
What are the restricted?
They are the amounts. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Those property owners haven't received those funds yet, so they'll be.
Okay. And then the next line down would be capital assets. Okay, capital assets, got all your infrastructure, plant, property, equipment, things of that nature. Just under $401 million this year compared to $377 million in the prior year. It's an increase of about $23.5 million. And the majority of that is all the work and construction in progress that's going into the high desert water main. Any questions there? So next line down would be total assets. That is just the sum, the sum of the three up there, if you add them down. So it's just under 100 or 580 million compared to just under $538 million in the prior year. So total assets increased 42 million in the current year. Next line down is the total assets in combination with deferred outflows. I think it's about $2 million in deferred outflows. That is an asset. It's a timing difference in the actuarial valuation of the OPEB net OPEB liability. So again, it has a timing difference account in the deferred outflows and the inflows as it relates to that. So that was about $2 million, bringing it at 581 or just under $582 million. Any questions as it relates to the total assets and deferred outflows? Right. Current liabilities. Again, these are liabilities that are turned over that can be turned over within a year. $19 million this year compared to $21.2 million in the prior year. Ultimately, a decrease there of about $2.2 million. Again, this is purely your accrued liabilities and your AP. There's some timing differences there when the bills are due and things of that nature. So not really anything to talk about there outside of just kind of some relative timing differences. Any questions on current liabilities? All right. Non-current liabilities includes your the main portion here is your bond debt. There are some liabilities related to compensated absences, leases, and also subscription-based assets, subscription-based IT platforms. So $61.5 million this year compared to $68.3 million in the prior year. That's a reduction of 6.8. Again, that's the majority of that is related to your payments on your bonds. So it's your natural amortization of your bond schedule there. Any questions on the long term? All right. Total liabilities, deferred inflows, and net position. Again, this is kind of your total net position in the entity. It is $582 million compared to the $540 million in the prior year. There's an increase of just under $42 million. So again, we always want to see that going up on a year-to-year basis. So definitely headed in the right direction. Any questions on this slide in general?
Before we get too far away, And a couple of, one question, really. Internal control report.
Mhm.
You said that's turned over to staff. Should that not be a separation from staff?
It's presented to the board as well. It's in your board package.
But
Yeah,
should
so-
that not be presented to the board or committee before it goes to staff? If there is any impropriety?
No, not necessarily, because we do need management's responses and we need to discuss that with management to make sure that we are in agreement on that it is actual finding. Because again, when my staff finds something,
It does not seem reasonable, but it should be at least in concurrence.
that is not a requirement of generally auditing standards, if that's what you're asking.
Internal control report, if something, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, yes. So in terms, like I said, it's a
That should be to the board.
Yes, it is presented to the board ultimately. Like I said, it is in your board package. It is.
Should be to the board first.
If that's what you'd like in the future, we could do that. That is not required by generally auditing standards, but we can do that for you.
But by business standards, I think it would be.
Yes, if that is,
If
that's
there's
what you want, we
if
can.
there's a problem, the board needs to see it very soon, the first thing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. This is just kind of a different rendering of the makeup of your assets here in a pie chart. Again, at just under $401 million, the bulk of your assets are your fixed, your capital assets there. Next large portion is your cash and investments, about 145,000, and then you'll see the makeup between the bank water inventory, your receivables and prepaids, and then just some other miscellaneous assets there. Any questions as far as the makeup of your assets? Next slide, please. And here's a presentation of your liabilities. Again, the biggest part of their liabilities is the $51.7 million bond debt. Next largest is your other long-term debt, which is, like I said, includes your net pension liability, your lease liabilities, and your Sabina liabilities as well. And then we have the other current liabilities, and then the current portion of your long-term debt, which again is what is due on your bond debt and leases in the next year. Any questions here? Next, here's a condensed version of the revenues and expenses. The first line item here is total operating revenues. Total operating revenues this year is $36.6 million compared to $27.8. That is an increase of just about $8.8 million. Let's see, the water sales increased about $3.5 million, and then the transfers and exchanges was about $3.8 million. That made up the bulk of that increase there. Any questions on the operating revenues? All right. Operating expenses. Again, these are expenses that it takes to run the operations here. $39 million in expense this year compared to $36.4 million in the prior year. It's an increase of about $2.6 million in expense. Kind of some, big ticket items that I looked at here was we had water purchases increase of about $1.3 million. And the services and fees, there was an increase there of about $800,000 related to legal. Again, some of the other ones kind of ebbed and flowed up and down. Overall, within the world we live in today, we kind of do see an increase in overall costs on a year-to-year basis.
Can you comment a little bit on non-operating revenues?
Yes. Non-operating revenues are made up of your, we'll start there. It's $82.5 million this year compared to about $90 million in the prior year. That's a decrease of about 7.5. So non-operating revenues mainly consist of taxes, property tax revenue, investment revenue, and then also capital contributions, which in the agency's cases is the reimbursement from Metro on the high desert water bank. So this year, in comparison to last year, there was an increase of tax revenue about $2.6 million, an increase in investment revenue about $2.8. However, the amount reimbursed by Metro went down about $13.5 million. So the combination of those is where you get your overall decrease in the non-operating revenue. Questions on non-operating revenue? All right. Non-operating expenses, about $30.4 million this year compared to 28.9 in the prior year. About an increase of 1.4, and I'm sorry, I forgot to write it down, Teresa, but you had that.
Yeah, so on this one, the state water contract or the fixed costs, the DWR fixed costs for the state water contract increased $2.2 million, and interest expense decreased $760,000 for the year. And that's as the debt gets paid off, our interest goes down. So that makes up the 1.4 million variance.
Any further questions on non-operating expenses? Okay. Ultimately, that brings us to a net increase of about $49.8 million compared to $52.5 million in the prior year. So as far as we had about a swing of about $2.8 million of less, call it net income for this year compared to last year. Any questions overall on this presentation on the revenues and expenses?
Director Miller here. Was there any effect, and is this the right portion of the audit to ask about paying off the bonds that we paid off? How does that affect our
well, it affects nothing in the current year because you guys paid, the bulk of it, that $45 million in the prior year. The effect that had, what Teresa just kind of alluded to, was the reduction of interest expense. Because again, less outstanding debt, less interest that's being charged on that. So ultimately, as you pay off your bond debt, those interest expenses that you see year to year will go down.
Okay.
So that's the ultimate effect that you're going to see here. Now, as far as actual paying it, it's a reduction on the balance on the statement of net position. The only effect it has here doesn't have like a dollar per dollar effect here. It's legitimately just the effect on the interest. Any other questions? All right. Next slide here is again another pie chart, just kind of showing up the breakup of revenue. The biggest portion there is the tax revenues at $44.5 million. Next largest would be water sales of just under 32 million, and then capital contributions. Capital contributions of just under $26 million there. Any questions? Next slide, please. Here's a rendering of your operating expenses. In the orange, the state water contract is your biggest expense at just over $28 million. Your next largest is water purchases of 11.7, and then we get down into G&A, general and administrative expenses of 9 million, and depreciation and amortization just under 9 million. So those are kind of your larger expense items with the rest. And then the water treatment again in green at 7.5. Any questions on operating expenses?
Okay, I have a question.
Right.
Because we purchased so much water last year, that's within this fiscal year, or that?
It is within this fiscal year, but it doesn't show in the expense portion. It shows in the asset portion. That's the increase to the current asset.
Because that's right.
Yeah.
Because it's
So
capital.
that was about, remember when I said earlier, it was about that $8 million deal.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think the water purchase here is the release of that.
The sales, right.
Any other questions? All right, next slide. Again, this is my thank you to the staff here and the board for having us. You guys are well put together agency, both I think operationally and fiscally. So again, it makes my job a lot easier. So I appreciate it.
How do we compare with the different public agencies that you would audit?
water agencies, I don't like to compare any to any general public agencies. Like I said in the other committee meeting, I think you guys have probably one of the most educated boards I've seen. You guys have a really robust staff and allows you to do a lot. But again, from your financials are very healthy in comparison. Most water agencies are fairly healthy, but I think you guys are on just a bit of a grander level, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming.
No problem.
All right, thank you, Brandon.
Good.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Brandon.
Okay, I think that brings us down to,
So I'll make a motion to approve them. I'll make,
oh, excuse me, go ahead, yes, Frank.
yeah, I'll make a motion on 8A2 to accept and file the audit for the fiscal year of June 30th, 2024.
Hey, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Mr. President, this is Rob. I second that motion.
We have a second by Director Paris. There's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you much. That'll bring us down to item 8B1, Customer Relations and Public Information. And Director Van Dam, which chairman of that committee, would you like to start or Pam, Gary?
Yeah, we had our meeting and everything went well, and go ahead, Pam.
Well, thank you, Director Van Dam. Good evening, members of the board. The item being considered is possible action on the Avek Director Justin G. Lane Memorial Scholarship Endowment for Antelope Valley College students for the 2025-2026 academic year. On page 93 of your packet, you'll find a staff report for this item, and I'll provide some background and the committee's recommendation. So back in February of 2020, the AVEC board approved a contribution of $25,000 to the Antelope Valley College Foundation Scholarship Endowment. And that endowment enables AVEC to perpetually award scholarships to AV students on an annual basis. And currently for the upcoming 2025-2026 academic year, AVEC has $1,400 available coming from the endowment fund to award for scholarships to eligible students. And we have until December 20th to inform the foundation on what AVEC scholarship commitment is going to be for the upcoming year. And then they're going to announce scholarship awards in March of 2025. Next slide, please. So the board has established some criteria for eligibility for the scholarship applicants. They must be a full or part-time student with a minimum GPA of 3.0. They can be enrolled in water science courses 101, 115, or 120, or they can be taking engineering courses, and they can have a career path in a STEM field or water treatment or distribution. Next slide. And last year, for the 2024-2025 academic year, the board decided to award a total of $3,000 in scholarships, and those were broken down into three separate $1,000 scholarships. AVEC does have the option of awarding the $1,400 available from the endowment in one lump sum, or it can break it up into several scholarships. And it also has the option of contributing additional funds to make a little bit larger scholarship award. Any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question. So last year we gave three $1,000 scholarships, and did all that come out of the endowment, or did we add to it?
It came out of the endowment because in the previous years, our criteria was a little bit smaller. So we expanded the criteria to include engineering students. And in those previous couple of years, we didn't have any eligible students. So there's a little bit of extra money coming from the endowment.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Was there any discussion at the committee that to just do what we did last year and add a little bit more so we could get 3 $1,000 scholarships, so we're not decreasing from what we did in the prior year?
Yeah, so the committee is recommending actually awarding $2,000 scholarships, so adding an additional $600 to what we have in the endowment, and then awarding $2,000 scholarships. I mean, I'm sure it's open for discussion if we want to repeat what we did last year and make a little bit, it'd be an additional $1,600 contribution.
Well, I like the reason why we give the scholarship and they're in Justin's name, and the fact that we gave 3 last year, we'd be cutting back this year, and my preference would be just to
Mr. Parrish, you have a motion?
yes, I guess. So that would be, we were going to add 600, so my motion would be to, let me see what the border. Yeah, my motion would be to add 1,600 to our scholarship fund so that we would give 3 $1,000 scholarships, the same as we did last year.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion or comments?
Well, wait. I do have I have a question. These scholarships, they go, who interviews the applicants to give the scholarships money?
Good question. So there's a scholarship review committee. I've actually been volunteering on that committee for quite a few years, even before being here at Avek. And they'll narrow it down to whichever students are eligible, the foundation will, and then they'll present them to the committee. And there's a criteria for evaluating each one of the applicants. It's a scoring system. And then the committee will make their recommendations to the foundation, and then the foundation will come back to Avek and will present those scholarship applicants that are eligible that we feel meet the criteria, and the board will have another chance to approve those scholarship applicants.
Okay, so the next question I have with that's good. The second question I have with that, are these applicants reside in the Antelope Valley?
That's not a criteria, though. Just from reviewing the past applicants, they all have been residents that are, typically to be able to go to Antelope Valley College. They do have some online courses, but a lot of their courses are in person. I think their at least for the water treatment programs, they're all in person. So it would be hard for somebody to live. Maybe they could live as far as Santa Clarita and drive up here, or somewhere within the vicinity. But so far, I think almost all the students we've awarded to have been residents.
I think when you have a chance, or the committee has a chance, I think that should be mandated that they have to reside in the Antelope Valley is one of the criterias, because, and you said some of them can take water classes online, which means they could be in San Diego and get the scholarship and do the classes online.
They don't have water classes online, only in person. I do know that.
Oh, okay. And this strictly has to do with water, correct?
Well, it is open to engineering students as well. Though we would give a preference to any water students. Those are
It's all engineer. It's an engineer scholarship.
It's a scholarship for ABC students that meet all the criteria that the board has set forth, and the students can either be taking water treatment and distribution courses or engineering courses. Though when we get the scholarship applicants, if there's students that are looking for a career path in water, we give them preference.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to find out. All right. So it can't be just general ed. It has to be something. Is it time? What are the criteria? Engineering? What else?
We can go back to that slide, please. So they have to be either enrolled in water science courses 101, 150, or 120, or they can be taking an engineering course, and their career path has to either be in water or a STEM field. And then we give preference to any students that are going down a water career path.
Okay, you answered, that's, okay, that's what I don't know why I missed that, but that's exactly, that's what it should be. And I think also, yeah, you know, I'm just saying it should be Antelope Valley residents. That's, you know, like you said, Santa Clarita Valley, you know, or something like that, what's within our, you know, agency, district or whatever. That's just a thought. You know, I mean, you have to make a decision today. I'm gonna vote for it, and I think that, you know, I think with the committee and what the motion is, I think we should have a higher amount of money, scholarship money, to go towards these applicants, because we have a shortage of engineers and water people everywhere. And this, I think it is something to think about too. Maybe next time you come around, that there should be additional money that should be added to the scholarship fund. Just a thought.
A good thought. We can look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Director Donato, and that's what I was thinking, if we can take a look at maybe budgeting an annual amount to increase the base each year
Good point.
to grow it.
Good point. Yeah.
And I have a question.
Camilla.
On the notes here for the action item, it says the money was $600 was coming out of the public information fund to add to the 1,400.
Yeah, that's been budgeted. That is included in the budget this year. There's room in the budget. So
And there'd be room in the budget for 1,600.
I would have to double check, but I do believe.
Teresa's.
I don't think we've spent much of that money this year.
How much is in that budget? Can you give it all to them?
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Good job, Pam.
Okay, that brings us on to the next item, 8C1, High Desert Water Bank Committee, and Director Donato is also chairman of this committee.
Okay, we met on the yesterday. So we went over this, and right now I'm getting a monthly update, the High Desert Water Bank, from our engineer, Justin.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, President Lane, members of the board. Pretty brief monthly update this month. As you can see in the audience, we do not have our consulting engineering staff. They're not on the line either. We decided to give them the day off because it is a pretty simple update that we got this time. So moving into our update for this month, we'll start out with kind of banking status and our executive summary. And you can see we've broken this up a little bit. Just one of the comments from the committee members was, let's make sure that it's very clear who is banking, whether it's Metropolitan and AVAC, or just Metropolitan, or just AVAC. So we've broken this up a little bit differently than we have in the past, and we hope that you find this a little bit more informative and clear. But starting there at the top, you can see the status for Metropolitan's banking is on. We're banking about 120 CFS, which is about 240 acre feet per day out at the site. Final totals for October were 6,214 acre feet. To date, as of yesterday, actually, for November, we've delivered 6,055 acre feet. So we're gonna get pretty close, if not exceed, the 7,000 acre foot mark here in November, which would be the high so far. So everything's looking good. We are on track to get pretty close to our goal for 2024, which is about 40,000 acre feet in this calendar year. In 2023, moving down kind of the middle of the slide there, Metropolitan delivered 12,003 acre feet. So that is the sum of their total deliveries prior to this year. This year, including the official numbers from October, is 25,401 acre feet, which is a gross total stored at the High Desert Water Bank for Metropolitan of 37,404. Of course, we have the one-time 10% loss in the banking process. So that brings their recoverable or net balance to 33,664 acre feet. And then for AVEC, we are not banking out there. As you know, we've got second priority rights to utilizing the project, and currently Metropolitan is utilizing 100% of the capacity under their first priority right. So we are not banking and have not banked here in 2024. But our deliveries from our pilot recharge that we did back in 2017-18 timeframe, and inclusive of the about half a month we were able to bank some water in 2023, our total deliveries to the High Desert Water Bank are 7,111 acre feet. And again, no deliveries this year, so that is also our gross total. Deducting the one-time 10% leave behind gives us 6,400 acre feet for AVEC's benefit in the High Desert Water Bank as of now. So hopefully that was easy to follow. Moving straight into budget. Not too much has changed on this slide, except for the payout to date column here has been updated with recent payments to contractors and consultants. No new approved contracts, so the total percent committed of the budget has not changed, nor has the available budget column in the far right-hand column there. So everything's looking good on that. And we do have some of the active contracts broken out in further detail on this slide here. Again, everything is looking good. A couple of things that I pointed out to the committee yesterday was how these things are tracking versus progress for construction. So if you look at our recharge package, that construction contract is getting pretty close to being finished. They're really done with all the field work and have supplied us with everything from the punch list at this time. So just making some final reviews on those items, and then that'll be officially pretty much ready to close out. So we anticipate coming to the committee and board to file notice of completion on that project here within the next couple of months. But if you look at the construction item here at the bottom, you can see where this shows 97% complete. That's withholding some retention. In reality, they're really about 100%. But looking at the bid support and engineering services during construction, only about 83% paid. And then for the construction management on that, about 81% paid. So those are tracking really well compared to the construction progress in the field. And a similar story for drilling package number 3 for the active Bakersfield well and pump contract that's out. They're about 35%-ish complete. And then the construction management is lower than that, about 30% here. And then the engineering support is about 26%. So everything is tracking really well with our active contracts at this time. Moving into the capital program account, this is just cash flow in and out of that account. Teresa's doing a good job of managing all of that. We've got about $2.3 million in that account right now. We have one outstanding invoice to Metropolitan, which is due in, next Friday. That's about $3.5 million there. So far, Metropolitan has contributed just under $96 million to the project so far. Jumping into construction really quickly, not too much to update here, but Nicholas Construction did complete the riprap channel extensions that was approved as a time and materials change order. We've got all their final tickets in, so our construction management team is reviewing that against their records to ensure that we're being billed for only the work that was actually completed. The first glance at that looks positive. It looks like it's coming in a little bit under the authorized time and materials value. But once they get through looking at all those tickets, we'll have a final number that we can report back to the board. Here's a picture of one of those spillways in use, and it's working extremely well and has really allowed us to ramp up our banking out at that project site since those were completed.
Justin?
How deep is this here?
Approximately.
It's probably 3 or 4 feet deep in that area. Drilling package 3 activity. We heard this table in the past, but The green shading indicates completed phases of the drilling project for each well. And then the beige or pink tone there indicates where they're currently at on those wells. So you can see the top 4 wells there have all been completed. And then HD10 right now, they're working on the mechanical development. That should be wrapping up fairly soon. And then HD7, they're working on completing the gravel pack, and then they'll move into the development phases. For both of those, they won't need their rigs anymore. So those 2 rigs will hop over to HD25 and 27, and they'll begin drilling on the final 2 wells in this package. Their contract completion date is May of 2025, and they're looking like on target, maybe a little ahead of schedule as far as meeting that contract completion date. So things are going well out there in the field. That's a couple photos of their drilling rigs. Nothing too exciting. I think we've seen very similar photos in the past. And final slide is we reserve this for if there's anything else, but we don't have anything at this time. So be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Yes, sir.
So as we're wrapping up the construction on this project, phase 1, what are our plans going to phase 2, doing, starting to get the land, starting to push forward? It seems, I know the response on past has been, we're really busy on this.
Right.
But as we're coming to, and I know you still have the well program and all that, but it would seem now would be a good time to move forward with at least doing the land. And I know we're working with other agencies and stuff, but if not now, when?
Yeah, I mean, there is still quite a bit left to do here in phase 1. Obviously, the recharge basins are underway, and that's going really, really well. We still have the well equipping package that Stantec's working on as far as design goes, and a few more wells to drill. We've also been working with Metropolitan on the treatment decision for that project. So those are the kind of things that we're focused on right now. We do have an eye towards the future as far as phase 2 goes. But I don't know unless Matt wants to chime in. I think I'm pretty focused on phase 1 at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So I think a big milestone that we'll hear from Metropolitan will be in the first quarter of 2025 on their decision of treatment versus connection to the LADWP pipeline. And what I've had some conversation with the interim GM at Metropolitan Water District, and he's indicated once they get through that decision as an agency, they would like to discuss phase 2 with AVAC, because they do have a need for additional storage capacity. And then Director Paris asked about land purchases. If you remember, we purchased about 435 acres, I think it was, that's just east of 280th Street along the California Aqueduct. We picked that up a year or so ago at a pretty reasonable price. So, I mean, we envision phase 2 kind of moving in that area where we picked up that 435 acres. And so anything to add? No.
But we know we need more than that.
Yeah.
And we know what the eminent domain process is. And we, have attorneys and people lined up for that. That's more management, less engineering stuff, and pretty much consultant driven. So why wouldn't we start moving in that direction? Because it's going to be a 1 to 2 year process to collect land, get it, and litigate if necessary, as we saw. So it seems while we're moving forward with this, we should be pursuing the eminent domain of the land. That'd be my feeling, but I'm not on the committee, so I don't know what the committee's thoughts are, but that would be a good proactive step to take. We know we have a lot of interest from other contractors. So that's, I don't, maybe not a question for you as much as for the committee, but George, what are your thoughts?
That's a good point, Robin. I think that's, I'm not on that committee either. So that's something the committee could look at. And so after the first of the year, that would be something that would be worthwhile talking about.
I thought they could have a special meeting on Thanksgiving.
Justin and Matt, we still have additional property that hasn't been developed, do we not? Next to the water bank?
Yeah, we own some property, to the west of the recharge basins, all the way over to 300th Street West. So there's that property, then the 435 acres that I spoke of that could be incorporated into phase two if we go that route. Another thing we're going to learn over the next year or so is what our true annual recharge rate is going to be on the current phase. We're collecting good data now with our recharge activity. And then as we get all 27 wells drilled and tested, we'll know where we stand with the estimated annual recovery capacity. It could be that we're going to far exceed the 70,000 acre feet of recovery capacity if our new wells keep producing like they are. Some of the recent wells have shown that they're set to produce quite a bit more than what we anticipated. So we're going to learn more information over the next year.
When the committee meets, maybe after the first of the year, could that be discussed?
Yeah.
An
Yeah, we
agenda
can.
item?
Yep.
Good point.
Thank you.
Is it,
Oh, that's Gary's the chairman on that. Gary.
No, it's actually Frank.
Yeah.
Oh, Frank.
Yeah.
Hey. Oh, I thought so. Frank, what do you think?
I think it's great.
You'll put that on the agenda for your next committee meeting?
Yep.
Oh, great. Thank you.
just
We're working on things, we're working on some other things right now too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a
yeah.
lot of moving
we
parts.
can't be, yeah, there's some big things on the horizon.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions from Justin? Justin, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
This is for information only, there's no board order, so.
Right.
Now we'll move on to general manager's report. Matt?
All right. So we're going to start off with some water supply and weather updates. And I think Peter is going to take the first few slides. So take it away, Pete.
All right, thank you, Matt. Good evening, President Lane, members of the board. We're just going to give a quick overview of where we're at entering this new water year. So we did see a good surge of water that came through with that recent atmospheric river. We were under average for the year, and then we really jumped up, I think close to like 12 inches during that one big storm we had. So that's good. That affects the Oroville watershed. So water running from that will fill into the Oroville area. But overall, we still got a lot of time to go before we know how much water we're going to get and snow we're going to get into that watershed. All right, next slide. So I have on here the San Joaquin 5-station index. So that shows the precipitation in the San Joaquin. That's important because that actually has a direct impact on how much we can pump from the South Delta. So we're currently slightly under average, but I'm hoping today's storms will push that up above average significantly. All right, next slide. And then just taking a look at Lake Oroville, we're at average, which is good. And right now it's being managed for flood control. So they've been purposely releasing water from Oroville to make room for flood mitigation. And so they're keeping it about where they want it. And so we'll enter into that water year with a pretty average supply in Oroville. Our next slide. And then there, San Luis Reservoir. So it's about half full right now, close to 1 million acre feet. It's got 2 million acre feet of capacity. So I guess the positive news is that there's no imminent spill risk. So we don't have to manage that. Our 25,000 acre feet of carryover that we're planning is safe in San Luis, probably for the next couple of months. And I think that covers it for that slide, Holly. We just want to talk about where we're at with the forecast. So last couple board meetings ago, Tom gave the NOAA forecast. So this one is a recent update for December showing average precipitation expected and pretty much average temperatures. So it's kind of like a 50-50. It could be higher or it could be lower than typical. So what we're we're looking at is Monday, December 2nd. DWR is going to release the initial allocation. And these are all the things that they look at. But one of the things they've cautioned us is to set our expectations low, because the summer and the fall were exceptionally hot and dry. And it kind of goes past what their historical models have ever seen. So they don't know how to model out the flow out of those watersheds this year. So they're probably going to take a conservative course when they set that initial allocation. And I think that concludes the report.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from Assistant General Manager?
All right, thank you, Pete. Good job. So next, I'm going to invite Pam Clark back up to give an update on a couple items that were also discussed with the Public Information Committee, and just information items at this point.
Thank you, Matt, and good evening again, members of the board. Yeah, so the first item is just an update on Palmdale High School's Ag Department tour that's coming up. The Ag Department at Palmdale High School reached out to staff and requested a tour of ABEC's facilities for approximately 40 of their students and a couple of their staff. They would like to tour the Quartz Hill water treatment plant, as well as some of the banking facilities. Staff briefed the Customer Relations and Public Information Committee on the 19th and received their recommendation to go ahead and confirm the tour, which is tentatively scheduled for February 27th of 2025. We thought with the large size of the tour, it would just be wise to bring it in front of the committee and let the board know what was coming up. The emphasis on their tour is going to be how AVEC is building a sustainable water supply and also careers in water. And they'll provide their own transportation by bus. AVEC's going to arrange lunch on site, and then staff plans to consult with JPIA due to the large size of the group, just to address any additional insurance requirements that we might need to consider. Any questions on that?
The Falcon's a nice touch.
The Falcon, yeah.
No, I think that the PHS alumni should be able to go on this tour with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Right, Director Taylor?
I'm going to be in Washington, unfortunately.
I will be.
You will be too.
oh, darn. Well, we do have a working draft of the agenda kind of going back and forth with the department. So it looks like it's going to be the 27th. It could change, but we'll keep the board updated. So if anybody does want to attend, they can come.
That's a great program, and I bet the students will really enjoy it.
Great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more, I think agriculture needs to get back stronger in schools. It's like a lot of other states in the country. I mean, it's become a top priority in the school system now.
Frank, this is Rob. You'll be happy to know that Charlie Hughes, as the chairman of the Antelope High School District, has made the agricultural programs a major priority for the high school district, and they've been putting a lot of resources into it for about the last 2 years and getting some real good results. And the number of animals being shown at the fair is starting to increase because of that. The Friends of Fair have committed funds to provide loans for the FFA students to buy animals. So a lot of good things are happening with the agricultural programs at the high school district.
Great news. That's great.
That was Charlie Hughes. He's the chairman of the
Yeah, I know.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
and he's really focused on the ag programs, and he's doing a great job.
Yes, it's been neglected too long.
Agreed, and I think it's coming back to its own, and this tour is one of the examples of the ag program instructors reaching out and being excited about doing new things and getting more students involved. So I think that's Kathy Calvert out of Palmdale High School.
Lisa Antonelli. Oh, if that rings a bell.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, Ron, but Kathy Calvert, I don't know her, but her dad was my teacher.
I remember Mr. Calvert from, I was at Palmdale High School at the time, but he was the ag instructor, and Leo Keeble and Harvey Kennedy were the ag instructors at, and Mr. Axtep at AV, or at Palmdale High School. Yeah.
Goes back a few years.
Yes, just a few.
Okay. Yeah, and
Great, well, we'll keep you informed, and when that agenda gets confirmed, and keep it on your radar.
Memories.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Well, this next item is an update on website accessibility requirements under Assembly Bill 1757. Under this bill, new accessibility rules may be enforced on all state and local governments. That includes all special districts as early as January 1st of 2025. The bill is currently being held in the Senate Appropriations Committee, but from everything we're hearing, it looks like it is going to go forward, if not in early 2025, at least by 2026. And the reason we want to bring this to your attention is the new rules go beyond just the website accessibility requirements. They're going to be extended to include document standards, accessibility policies, remediation methods, and more, and accessibility requirements for PDF documents. So not only our web pages, but everything that we upload to our site, like our agendas and our notices and things of that nature. And we won't only be responsible to ensure that new documents are meeting those requirements, but we have to address any old documents and come up with a plan for those that have been hosted on the site in the past. So it could get a little bit extensive. So we thought it's something that should at least be on your radar since it's coming up. Avek's website hosting service Streamline has been very proactive to ensure their customers are prepared to continue maintaining compliance under these stricter accessibility standards. They recently rolled out a new accessibility assessment tool that we've already kind of been using on the site to kind of see what's coming up. And, we just want to let you know there may be some additional costs that are included in the upcoming year.
Is this access to documents or I don't?
So what it would be is that documents that are hosted on our website have to meet certain accessibility requirements under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And some of those include different types of visual requirements, forms that may need to be embedded on some of our PDFs, closed captioning for videos and things of that nature. But as far as the new requirements go, it's going to extend kind of beyond just our website, which we already have built-in compliance tools that we've been using successfully. And it's going to extend to kind of all those PDF documents that we upload to the site. So like the agenda that you receive with a link, that would now need to be remediated and kind of brought up to these new standards.
Very, very well. Is there any questions from Pam?
Just a warning to staff. There are attorney groups out there that this is a niche area for them to bring multiple lawsuits. They've been doing it against the private companies, and I don't know what this bill does, but if it expands it so that public groups can be sued, they're out there. So take this seriously and get done what we need to get done.
Yeah.
Good advice.
And Pam is in contact with Streamline, the company that hosts our website, and they're aware of all these new regulations and requirements. So they'll make sure that we're in compliance.
Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you, Pam.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to?
Yeah, a couple, just two minor slides. So we mentioned this to the Finance Committee last week. There's two upcoming webinars that Teresa found that could be of interest to the board and Finance Committee. The first one is Economic Outlook, put on by PFM Asset Management. That's in mid-December.
They do a good job. Also.
Yeah. And then the second one is a webinar put on by LAIF, the Local Agency Investment Fund, where we have pretty significant amount of our investments tied up with them. or invested with them. And that webinar is scheduled for February 13th. So as we get closer to these dates, Holly can work with you if you want to dial into those. We'll have it up here at the office if you want to show up here and participate or do it remote. Upcoming events, we have our Thanksgiving holiday later this week, Thursday and Friday. Aqua Conference in Desert Springs next week. I'll be at that along with a couple of directors. We have our special board meeting on Monday, December 9th at 5:30. Take note of that. And then next day we have the AV Watermaster special meeting on Tuesday the 10th at 10 a.m. And then the AV Edge holiday breakfast scheduled for the 18th at 7:30 a.m. So let Holly know if you want to get tickets to that event. And that's all I have to report unless you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions to Matt? Okay, we'll move on to director's reports. We'll move on to attorney's reports.
Nothing to report presently.
Request for future agenda items. Okay, number 13, we do have two closed session items. And one's regarding CB communities. And the second item is regarding the Gila Ranch. Is a potential sale. And so we had a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. President, I'll move we go into closed session.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. President, Director Miller, second.
Yeah, we have a second. Motion and second. Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam. Sorry, Gary, you might be muted. *6. Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Harris.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes.
Drew Mercy.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Take a 5-minute break. And I wish everybody a nice Thanksgiving, and we'll see you back next week.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks for your hard work.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right, we're ready? Okay, we're back into open session and we need a motion to.
Mr. President, this is Rob. I move we adjourn.
Second.
Can we have a motion and a second? Oh, okay. I don't think there's any further discussion.
There was no reportable action. There was no reportable action as a result of closed session.
I didn't hear that.
No reportable action.
Yeah, no reportable action. So we have motion and second. Madam Secretary, we've got a roll call.
Gary Van Dam is not present. Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, yeah, motion carried. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.